Good day, everyone. Today we are going to be looking at the 49 processes from the Project Management Book of Knowledge, 6th edition. What we can see on our screen is what we have on the 25th page of Project Management Book of Knowledge. Talks about the knowledge areas and the project management process groups. So what you see here is a summary of what that book is all about. It involves 49 processes. It is expected that for those who are interested in taking PMP examination, that you should be able to write this within 5 minutes, and you should be able to understand what each process is all about. You should know the tools, techniques, inputs, and outputs for all the processes. All right, so what we want to do here today is to make an attempt to explain the flow for these processes. We want to make an attempt. If you look at it on the knowledge area, we have project integration. We have the project scope management, we have schedule management, we have cost management, we have quality management, we have resource management, we have communication management, risk management, procurement management, and stakeholder management. Then on the process group side, we have initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closing. All right. So one thing that we need to say is integration work is what brings all these processes together. You know, integration, under integration and planning, you develop your project charter. Then under planning, you develop the project management plan, which involves the production of all these documents that are required in your project management plan. And of course, during execution, you carry out the task, and during monitoring and control, you make sure that everything is in line. When it's to scope, it's to budget, everything is done according to the project management plan. And of course, you perform integrated change control where you have issues in the project, you work on your project management plan in order to achieve what you want. So we want to look at how the activities, these processes flow from beginning when you develop your project charter to the end when you close that project or phase. Okay, so the first thing, this is the flow. This diagram we have here is just to explain to us how the process flow in delivering a product. So from the integration, the first thing that is done is develop project charter. If we look at this at the center, you will see that what we have here is basically integration. All right, you integrate all the processes together. So the first thing to be done when you want to deliver a project is, of course, to develop a project charter, which authorizes that this project has been assessed, the benefits has been looked at, a lot of analysis has been done, the justification has been proven, and yes, we are going ahead with this project. So when the project manager gets the project charter, all right, the next thing is what? To develop the project management plan. And in the process of developing the project management plan, the project manager, we have to look at the scope. He has to plan scope management, collect requirements, very, very important for the successful delivery of a project. You have to define the scope, and you have to create work breakdown structure. And in that process, you have to schedule, you have to plan schedule management. You define your activities. You should not miss anything out at this stage. You have to sequence your activities. You estimate your activity duration, and of course you come up with a schedule. Of course, you have to plan. One of the major cost elements in your project management plan is your cost management. You have to estimate your cost, and you have to determine what is your budget. Okay. Also, quality has to be looked at. You have to plan quality management. You have to look at your resource. You have to estimate resource activity resource. You have to plan your communication management plan. You look at risk, you plan risk, you identify risk, you perform qualitative analysis, risk analysis, which has to do with the prioritization of your risk, and quantitative risk analysis, which has to do with rating and giving value to your risk. Then you have to plan risk response. Then also you have to plan your procurement management plan, and then your stakeholders, you have to plan how to engage them. All right, so that you do, and you come up with a document called project management plan. So when you get your project management plan, you move to the execution stage, and it is worthy of note to mention that during direct and manage work, which is integration, the executive under integration, the executive part is direct and manage work. And you can see we have this line on this side, and we have this line on this side. As you are executing the job, you are also monitoring, and you are controlling it. All right, so when you execute the job, you have to manage your project knowledge. Your lessons now to learn have to be properly documented. Then all the risk that you have planned for, when they surface, you implement risk response. And of course, you will not forget quality. You have to manage your quality. Quality assurance comes in here. You have to ensure that you set processes in place to make sure you achieve what has been set in the program, the project management plan. Of course, your resources here, you acquire resources, you develop team, you manage your team. And communication has to be properly done here. And of course, procurement, you manage it. And your stakeholders, you have to monitor them, you have to inform them, you have to keep them very close, as the case may be. And on the other side, you have to be analyzing the results you are getting from your project information. You have to analyze it to get your project report to ensure that procurement is done properly, quality is being controlled, you monitor communication as per the project management plan, you monitor stakeholder engagement, your resources, you are controlling them. You also do not forget to control your schedule. You run some analysis and value analysis and a lot of other analysis to be sure that you're on top of time in your schedule, you're on top of cost, your risk is being monitored, and of course you don't work out of scope. So when you are executing and you are monitoring and control, in that process you encounter changes and you perform integrated change control. If there's any major change, you make sure that that change is assessed, is evaluated, is submitted to the change control board, and if it's approved, you amend your program of work accordingly and you implement. So that is what change control is all about. Hardly will you see any project where you do not have changes, but you have to manage them appropriately. All right, so when you are done, you get your deliverable. Now your deliverable has to pass through two different processes. The first is control quality. This is where you check internally to ensure that the deliverable is has met in terms of quality the parameters that has been set at the beginning while you are planning your project. And this verified deliverable, it goes to stakeholders. So when it goes to stakeholders and customers, they will need to check and give you feedback on the deliverable. If it's accepted, then it becomes an acceptable deliverable. And from that place, you move to the last process, which is close project or phase, where the final project or service or the result is formally accepted, officially accepted, and you close the project. You write your final report. I mean, you do a brainstorming session. You lessons learned. You write your final report, and you release your team. So that is the process that is expected to be used by a project manager that is practicing a traditional method of project management, which is the predictable process. All right. So what we want to do next is to give an example of all these processes in a simple way, so that we bring it down to a level that we can understand. So imagine your wife telling you that, guy, I want to paint my room. So we want to analyze painting a room with all these processes. Okay, so if your wife asks you to paint your room, you ask her, in order for her to give you a project charter, you will need to tell her, she will need to tell you, give you the go-ahead, the authorization to go ahead, that indeed I want to paint my room. All right? And in that process, what happens next? You will need to come up with your project management plan. You will need to determine the scope. You need to collect requirements from her. What color do you need? What color of paint do you need? Which side of the room, which area in the room is to be painted? Is it the wall? Is it the ceiling? Are you doing anything on the floor? You define the scope of work that is going to be done, and you do what? You create your work breakdown structure, how you are going to manage that work accordingly in your head. Of course, you might not need to write it down, but if it's to be documented, these are some of the things that you will need to do. Okay, now you have to plan your schedule management. You have to define the activities. You have to sequence the activities. What do I need to do first when I want to paint? What are the things I need to do? I need to remove furniture. I need to buy paint. I need to clear out what is there. So all those activities that you carry out to achieve that painting, you have to sequence them, and you have to estimate the duration that it will take you to paint that room. Then when you are done, just prepare a schedule. I want to use a day. I want to use 2 days to get this room painted. Then also you have to look at the cost. You have to estimate your cost, and you look at the budget. If it's $1,000 that I have to get this job done, then under cost, under quality, you have to decide the quality of the paint that you want to use. So you're going to use emulsion, you're going to use test coat, you're going to use satin, you're going to use a very cheap or very expensive paint. And of course, you have to decide whether you are going to do in terms of resource. Am I going to paint this room myself? Do I need to get a labor? I need to estimate the kind of labor that I need to get. And of course, you want to talk about communication. And during this job, I need to be communicating with my stakeholder, my children, all right, my wife. Oh, they should not disturb me. You have to make it clear that when I'm doing this job, I do not want any disturbance. And you look at the risk. You have to identify risk. Is there going to be a change in weather? Is there going to be any obstruction? Do I need to do some things so that will not disturb me during this time? You have to quantify your risk, and also if anything happens, you have to have a plan in place. How do I get it done? All right, for instance, when we are painting and this paint can spill, the paint can fall on the floor, probably you need to get something to cover the floor so that the stain does not smear the floor. And of course, your procurement, you have to decide who do you want to buy the paint from. And of your stakeholders, you have to manage them very well. Your family, if you have a pet at home, they have to be properly managed. All right, so bam, you just in your head, as it were, you have a project management plan in place. Then you go straight to the execution. So during the execution, you are making sure that all weeks, if they show up, if there's any smeared paint, you already know how to mitigate them. You already know that you need to put something on the floor so that it doesn't get stained. Probably you need to lock the door so that somebody doesn't come inside and eat you when you're on a ladder and there's a fall. And you have to make sure that the quality of the paint is what was given to you. All right. Then you have to, if you have employed a labor, if hired a labor, you have to supervise them to ensure that everything is going on fine and well. And you have to be communicating with your stakeholders as well, and manage procurement. Ensure that what was bought, what was ordered, it was what bought, and your stakeholders, you manage them properly. And of course, you begin to look at, as we are painting in your head, you are thinking of, oh, the quality of this paint. Is it what they told me that is going to, for instance, for quality, the coverage area will be 5 square meter for 1 liter, and you are checking that is it 5 liters for the coverage area, is it the same thing as they have written on the body of the paint bucket that you bought. You are communicating and with your stakeholders, you are making sure everything is okay. You are looking at the time that you've planned that you want to use to do the paint, and you are making sure that you've planned for a day or 2 days. If you go more than a day, you will be sure that you spend more on cost. You are looking at all those stuffs. You are looking at your risk, that everything is okay. You are making sure that you are not painting more than you have agreed from your project management plan that you will paint. All right. So as you are working, you are also monitoring and controlling the project work. And when it's done, you sit down. Finally, you check your quality of the job that has been done. Is it as planned? Are all the things that you want to do, the color, the shade, the texture, is everything okay? When you have done your internal verification, you will call your stakeholders. How do you feel about this paint? How do you feel about this painting? If they give you a thumbs up, then it means your project has been accepted. Then you close it. You make sure you pay everybody that needs to be paid. You make sure you clean the room and you call them. You hand over the key to them, and you have performed all the 49 processes to create a project deliverable. So all these processes, as a project manager, especially one that is practicing traditional and predictable project management, you should know, you should be able to explain all these 49 processes. So that is the 49 processes explained. Thank you.